Good morning, dear friends. Hope you are all very well in this beautiful Saturday morning. It is my great pleasure to welcome you once again to our online course on Satyasai Education in Human Values. As you are all informed, the theme of today's session is storytelling, which is one of the 5 teaching techniques of a lesson on human values. During our first meeting after the Christmas break, almost 1 month ago, our dear Aksa gave us an overview on the 5 teaching techniques, which are silent sitting or meditation on the light, storytelling, universal prayers and quotations, group activities, and group singing. During the last session, we had the great joy to go through silent sitting and meditation on the light with dear Brigitte and Esthercris. Today we will continue with storytelling. Storytelling is an ancient art. Stories, fairy tales, myths, legends, and parables have been told, loved, and repeated as long as mankind has existed. Every culture has its own stories, which are shared as a means of education, cultural preservation, and inculcation of spiritual and moral values. The ancient Greek epics of the Iliad and the Odyssey have had a profound influence on world culture. The same is true of the Indian Ramayana and Mahabharata, as well as the parables from both the Old and New Testaments of the Bible. The fables of Aesop, the 1001 Arabian Nights with stories like Aladdin and the Magic Lamp, or the stories of more recent authors like The Ugly Duckling of Hans Christian Andersen, are all examples of the power of storytelling through the centuries. Stories are effective educational tools because listeners become easily engaged and they are able to imagine new perspectives, inviting and transformative and empathetic experience. Storytelling is therefore not confined only to children, but it can be used in any environment as an enjoyable, relaxing, and effective way to convey important messages. However, for a story to be effective, the storyteller is the key. Vocal inflections, body language, audience participation, and eye contact are a few tips for a good storyteller. I was fortunate to meet such a great storyteller in the field of Satyasai education in human values. He is none other than the late Torbjörn Meyer, who was the founder of the ISSE Institute, the first institute of Satyasai education in Europe, established in 1987. I have been a faculty member of this institute for many years, and I had the unique privilege to work closely with Torbjörn and enjoy those special moments during his presentations when he will start narrating a story. It was a delight not only for me, but for all participants. Torbjörn wrote a book entitled Sai Spiritual Stories, in which he collected all these stories that he used to narrate in his own unique way. As he points out in his book, the real goal of storytelling is not merely to entertain, but rather to pass on a moral and spiritual teaching. As the human values of love, truth, right conduct, peace, and non-violence are abstract concepts, it is necessary to illustrate their practical aspects in a simple way. Storytelling is the ideal tool for this. End of quotation. Today we are fortunate to have with us Verica Sekulic Opasic, an experienced teacher. Good morning, Verica.
Good morning to everybody. I'm very happy and honored to be today with this topic with all of you.
Same with us, dear Verica. Verica is a very experienced teacher, and she has practiced storytelling with her students for many, many years. I had the chance to conduct many seminars on human values with Verica in Serbia and other Balkan countries. Verica was born in Belgrade. She studied English language and literature as well as preschool education at the University of Belgrade, Serbia. She has specialized in the field of psychology of creativity. In 2008, she completed the Human Values Diploma course in Dharmakshetra, the Institute of Satya Sai Education in Mumbai. She also completed the standard diploma course of the Institute of Satya Sai Education of South Europe in 2013, and she has been a teacher trainer of the Institute since then. Throughout her professional life, which covers more than 30 years of experience, Verica has been involved in the field of children's development and growth as a preschool and English teacher in various educational institutions in Belgrade. She has developed holistic programs of English learning, drama workshops, and creative thinking for early age children. She spent 10 years running drama and storytelling workshops in the experimental preschool institution Children's Club in Belgrade. During the war in ex-Yugoslavia, from 1991 to 1999, she participated in the Smile Keepers and High Neighbor programs, where she underwent various training courses on post-traumatic stress. She spent those years visiting refugee camps and organizing workshops for children and adults with the aim of preserving the inner world of the children and their families, helping them overcome war trauma. Since 2008, she has been involved in various human values programs in the area of Balkan countries. One of the most important of them is taking place in Belgrade with children of the Sunshine School, and another one in Sarajevo with youth originating from the deprived families affected by the civil war between the former Yugoslavian countries. Both projects have been implemented for many years and prove that Satya Sai education in human values has a deep impact on the development of youth and children, bringing harmony and unity in their lives. At the moment, Verica works in the Sunshine School for Foreign Languages in Belgrade. I would now like to invite Verica to share with us her rich experience on the very important teaching technique of storytelling. I remind you to keep your mics and cameras off during the presentation and to use the chat during the questions and answer session. Enjoy the presentation. Dear Verica, the ground is yours.
Thank you, George, very much. Our topic of storytelling is very important for education in human values. Besides the silent sitting, these two techniques are the core, make the core of education in human values. In the first part of this presentation, we will try to understand why stories are such a good way of transmitting spiritual and human values. And in the other part, I will tell you some practical tips how to organize and create this type of class. Storytelling is the most important besides silent sitting because these two techniques turn the life energy of children inwards. And they teach us how to teach children through this experience how to gain inner silence that will connect them within themselves with the deepest parts of their soul. Turning inwards is something which is really missed today in modern education. Turning inwards opens hidden layers of our existence, which enables us to listen to our inner voice and to recognize what is our inner truth, and to understand why we as humans should be good persons. According to this table, we already had a chance to see the storytelling is particularly connected with the value of right conduct. The Sanskrit word for right conduct is a beautiful word, dharma, which give us concept that there is in this world an essential place that belongs to us by birth as human beings. And this is the place in which we feel happy, integrated, and fulfilled. And that there is a way we can learn how to behave in order to preserve this place of happiness. Sri Satya Sai used very often to say to his listeners, be happy. This phrase seems so simple, but it is not. It is very deep and should be well thought out, because we cannot be really happy if we do not discover what is the essence of our life and what are the behaviors that will preserve it. This is the essence of right conduct. When the founder of this program, Sri Satya Sai, decided to launch the program of human values education in 1969, he named it Balvikas, which means the blossoming of children's hearts. And the aim of this program was to awaken the deepest spiritual potentials in children's hearts. It was in the middle of 20th century. At that time, we were not able to see what he could clearly see, the consequences of the dramatic materialization that happened in the 20th century in all areas of human life. Now, 20 years into 21st century, we can very clearly see the consequences all around the world. Balvikas is not just one more educational program. Sri Satya Sai was a visionary who made an educational approach that has the strength to preserve the most precious part of our souls, spiritual values. Through dealing with values, children develop their strength to face the turbulent times they live in. Let us just for a couple of minutes remind ourselves what happened in the 20th century. 20th century became the world of dystopia. Dystopia is the word which I meet very often today. It is contrary to utopia. We all know what is utopia. Thomas Mann forged this word to make some kind of idea of an ideal world in which people live in the best possible way. But dystopia is contrary to this. This is the word which presents a state or society in which the great suffering, injustice, pollution, destruction of nature, totalitarian relationships among the citizens is present. And that is something that really happened in the 20th century. Let us remind ourselves that we had 2 world wars, that very dramatic leap in the development of science and technology ended in a quite, we as humans used this knowledge in a quite destructive way. Also, the spreading of culture of internet and mass media create some kind of paradigm which tells us that we are not the part of the whole, and that we as humans are alone in this world, and we are not connected enough with the strengths we should take from nature. The system of education was also not spared. Children gain knowledge and skills without developing a solid and integrated character. Spiritual values have become unnecessary and invisible. And we know from the spiritual teachings and from the science of psychology that we cannot be integrated persons without deep connections within ourselves, with our deepest parts, with the spiritual values that make us human. And we know from Satya Sai's teachings that integrated person with a mature character means that our behavior, our thinking, and our doing should be in accordance. We know this as a head, hands, and heart joined together. So we need this part of our soul which is connected with mythological thinking. If we want to be integrated, whole, we need to be in this inner silence in which we will be able to touch, to come into contact with living forces that are above rationality and above our personalities. This contact will give us strength not to give up our lives, because every man, every person has an inexhaustible need to find sense in his everyday life. And we all need to create our life as a mythical story with ourselves as heroes, which will preserve our humanness and our place in this world, which is positive. For this task, Satya Sai decided to use stories. Why stories? As already George said, stories are present in every culture. Every culture has its own stories that are cherished in order to preserve cultural and moral values, which these stories are used to educate younger generations. They were like a bridge that connected people from different generations, cultures, and life contexts because of the universal values that are stored there. As we know, when we start to explore the stories from various cultures, we can very easily see that all these stories are similar, that they have similar message and that they are not so different. That means that we from the inside have the same process of maturing, no matter to which nation we belong. And now I would like you to think a little about your own experience. I'm sure that everybody here has a person from childhood who used to tell the stories to you. I, for example, had one aunt who was very happy to tell us a lot of stories from the village in which my father used to grow up. These stories are very rich and they give us a lot of material which will last for throughout of our life. And we can use the strengths from these stories later in our life when we have some problems, crises, when we have some challenges. We can find the strength in this early age input we received from our families. And telling the stories and listening to the stories is an essential way how people gain, preserve, transfer, and explain their experiences. And while we tell the story and explain, we find the sense. And finding the sense is the essential factor in human maturing. And even today, when new media overflow the entire world with this fast exchange of information, with a lot of stories, programs which are shallow and made just for entertainment, we still have this habit in our intimate surroundings to create stories, simple stories, which transfer the important events we had in our families. And maybe we can now stress that these stories are not created just for entertainment. Today we have a lot of cartoons, a lot of films which tell traditional fairy stories, but because they were made primarily for entertainment, they lose this inner message which was created throughout the time. And also when we see the cartoon on TV, we see the drawing which is very rich, but somebody else created all these pictures. So we do not use our imagination to create pictures inside of ourselves. So telling the stories in the protective surroundings when elders transfer the ideas to youngers is still something which we cannot we should pay a lot of attention to this type of contact with youngers. We should understand that these stories that connect us with inner life use the language of symbols, metaphors, and archetypes. These are not just the stories which give some ideas and information. These stories are everlasting because they don't talk about concrete circumstances in which people live in one point of time, but they are universal since they address the universal inner life and inner problems of human maturing in a subtle and indirect way. These stories are forged throughout the time through collective remembering of many, many people. The metaphor, symbol, and archetype are very, very complex concepts, and we cannot go too wide and too deep into this in this situation where we want to understand what is a good story. It is just enough to say shortly and clearly what is the basic meaning of these words. A metaphor is a figure of speech in which a word or phrase directly refers to one thing by mentioning another to suggest a likeness or analogy between them. That means that we, for example, in fairy tale, do not meet really evil people or real threatening characters. We meet giants, we meet dragons, which are the metaphor of this type of people. And also here we have a picture which is metaphor. In this picture, Mother Earth is painted, and painter showed that the essence of Mother Earth is to protect living beings. We can see how beautiful this picture is, in which a Mother Earth is like a mother which takes care of her children. Symbol is even more complex concept. We will here just use the Jung's definition. He was a Swiss psychologist who defined symbols and archetypes in a way which is very close to spiritual teachings. And he says that symbol is the best possible expression for something that is not yet recognized and cannot be rationally explained. That means that symbols refer to the parts of our being that surpass only our rational thinking and only our consciousness, which we are aware in one moment. We cannot communicate directly with the parts of our being, which we are not aware enough because they are bigger than our everyday consciousness, and they are manifested with the help of symbols. We need these symbols to come into contact with these deep parts of ourselves. And the symbol is always complex, has a lot of faces, a lot of layers, always meaning more than we can realize and at one given moment. That is the reason why when we hear the story full of symbols, we have a process after hearing the story. The story is not finished. We have the inner process which goes on much longer time than the storytelling itself. Archetypes. This beautiful idea was also created by Jung in the field of psychology. The word archetype consists of two words of Greek origin. The one is arche, which means beginning, originating, and typos, which means primordial form. So this archetype we can translate as the imprinting of the primordial pictures. These archetypal ideas are the ones that a great number of people find meaningful through their repeated experience. They have tendency in a longer period of time to be imprinted in a collective consciousness, like a deep buried riverbed created by a long, slow, and continuous flow. These are, for example, the ideas of mother, father, king, and the queen, religious heroes. Repetitive human experiences also belong to this group, like birth, death, marriage, fight between good and evil. So these ideas do not belong only to one individual. These ideas are collective. These ideas also are in the base, they reach the teachings of Plato. Jung compared archetypes with Plato's ideas of pure mental forms that are imprinted in human souls before their birth. That means that this archetypal structure belongs to the essential structure of us as a human beings. Plato's ideas were the collective ones, since they dealt with the essence of things and not with the individual elements. We should understand this because in myths and in fairy tales, the characters which are the carriers of the story are not real characters, they are archetypes, and very often they do not have names. They are just they give just a general picture which influences very, very deeply these parts of our beings which are collective. It is important to understand that archetypes are not, we cannot destruct them. They are indestructible, but throughout the time, they can be very slowly developed and reconstructed according to the situation in which we today live. And stories like myths and fairy tales are well-known treasury of cultural archetypes. And that is the reason why we will talk today a little bit more about fairy tales. Fairy tales are not the only stories we can use in education in human values, but they are very rich resource of the values and of these collective pictures, which give us a lot of strength when trying to understand our human destiny. And that is the reason also why we think that telling stories harmonizes human beings, and why we tell that stories are connected with dharma, with right conduct. We should understand that our inner life is not a place where we do not have challenges and turbulences. Throughout our life, we have these challenges from early childhood, and we should understand that this process of maturing will last until the end of our life, until the last end of our life. And we are constantly from the inside in situation to find what is the essence of our thoughts and of our deeds, and stories in this way can help us understand, help us find orientation in our life, and help us develop these inner strengths which will support our life. When we hear the story, we identify with the characters, and we have this inner process in which we discern what is good, what is bad, what happened with this character, what are the consequences of some situations and behaviors which he passes through. And in this way, Bruno Bettelheim used to say, he was a very, very popular psychologist who dealt with fairy tales. And he used to say that ideas we meet in such stories help us make order in our inner house, which is really the essence of Dharma. But we should also think very carefully what stories to use in which age in order to follow this process of maturing. When small children are in question, we should use fairy tales and imaginative characters. Simple metaphoric real-life stories are also very appropriate, and we should use the stories which are simple and clear, which children can understand very easily, and which foster their imagination, because this is the period in which imagination is very active. And if we do this at this age, these children will be capable later to still use these forces to be creative and to create their place in the outer world with the help of their inner strengths. We should also stress here that value system we inherit from our surroundings, from our parents, is created until the age of 5 or 6. So the basic values we adopt in this period, and it is very, very important what types of stories we use at that age. When children are older, in the age from 10 to 15, we can use metaphoric real-life stories and some myths which are not too complicated. Above 15, children need more concrete stories. They like factual stories, inspiring events which made big changes in human life, scientific discoveries. Historical characters could change the world. And also, Sri Satya Sai used to stress that we should tell children the stories which are, they cannot, the stories which will transfer values which they cannot learn by themselves. We know that children learn through imitation, through observation of their surroundings, but we should also use the stories which are ancient, like epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, like spiritual books with spiritual values, like the Bible, the Buddhist text, the Quran, and Zen Avesta, for example. So all these books which inherit spiritual values, which are very deep and on a collective level. We will talk now about fairy tales more, because a special role in children's education is given to fairy tales. Fairy tales are the stories which help children come to some kind of maturing from the inside. They are not the stories which inform, but which give some kind of transformation. They develop more mature awareness that children would not be able to reach by themselves. In the fairy tales, good and evil are directly confronted in an extreme and simplified way. But the most important thing is that good always conquers evil. That means that evil characters should not be avoided from the stories. If we try to make those evil characters a little bit better than they are in the original story, we will lose this process of transformation and catharsis which children should pass while listening to the fairy story. And also, fairy tales teach children that actions always create some consequences, and the main characters are the one children can very easily identify with. They are very often lonely, but they are always in some connection with the primitive life, with trees, animals, nature. So some tiny creatures always help our main character to conquer the evil. And ordinary characters become heroes of these stories. The structure of a fairy tale is like this. They are not tied to any place or time, and the characters usually do not have names, as we already said. The stories begin with the words long, long time ago, once upon a time, which means that we do not give coordinates of time and space. And every fairy tale consists of 3 parts. The story has 3 parts. The first one is the setting of the story, presenting the world of hero before adventure begins. New slide, please. New slide, please. Yes. So the setting of a story is some situation, the beginning, which very often shows the domination of evil, and it helps us to define the position of the main character. And the middle part of the story is some kind of inner journey in which conflict appears and turns the hero's world upside down, bringing some challenges and putting the character into situation that he has to fight to overcome this situation. The situations are in this part repetitive. We very often have we have this challenge repeated 3 times, and this repetition creates tension, and this is the part in which children are not spared of evil and temptations. And the resolution comes at the end with some kind of catharsis in which hero conquers evil and passes through transformation within himself and in the world. This is the structure which always follows right conduct. This is the human value of Dharma, because resolutions always bring happiness, and these happy endings are not by chance. They are needed because our inner structure, our soul, needs to put things into harmony, and harmony is the end of every process of maturing. That is the reason why the fairy tales have this structure. The end brings peace, encouragement, since good always conquers evil, and the listener pass through this process and are happy in the end. The benefits of storytelling, we have many benefits of storytelling, but the most important is that story inspire, encourage curiosity and imagination. Next slide, please. They transmit life wisdom. Children can very easily identify with the story characters, Through identifying with these characters, they are taught what is nice and good behavior. This nice and good behavior has inner logic, and that is the reason why children in this way learn to be like this. They understand what is the essence of right and good behavior, that this behavior helps us find our good place in life, which will make us happy. Stories also can change our way of thinking because of this inspiration with positive attitudes, and the children also find the strategies which will help them cope with the life difficulties. And it is also very important to understand that in all fairy tale stories, cooperation is more important than competition. We see that these characters who are at the beginning weak and do not know what to do, that they are always helped by some small creatures which belong to the world of nature, and which are all together help the hero to conquer the evil. While thinking about this, I all of a sudden remembered that, for example, in modern physics, in quantum physics, you have one of the laws which says that the tiniest particle in one system can change the whole system. So this is very modern idea, but very ancient idea as well. We now, after the century of competing and conquering other people and the world of nature, we now have to learn how to cooperate with life within ourselves and in the outer world in order to survive in this world. And also, these stories build inner discipline. I have to tell that my experiences with children who come to EHV classes, that I do not have problems with their discipline in the regular classes, because they create this inner discipline from the inside. I don't have to control them. And the other thing is that we create a very deep connection, which is full of trust, and that children do not have a need to compete with me. So even when they have some problems, it is much easier to these children to come and share this with their teacher when this deep relationship is created. Now I will tell some practical things. When we think how to organize the class, we need to think about some steps which will help us. So the audio-visual means are always can enrich the basic situation for storytelling, but we should remember that a good teacher is the best means. It is much better if not only teacher, I can say adult, because we also tell stories to our children as parents. So the narrator should tell the story, not read, because when we tell the story, we can be in the direct contact with children, and we can react, we can follow their emotions and this process of inner connection with story, and we can tell the story in a better way if we are aware of our listeners. Also, it is very important to tell the story in which we believe, in which we enjoy. If it is not interesting to us, why would the story be interesting to children? We do not transfer only words, but we transfer the energy which this story creates. So it is very important to find the things which have the meaning and which inspire us as narrators. The topic should be in accordance with the age and real needs of children. And we shouldn't use the stories which are too complicated with too many characters, because it can be confusing for children. After telling the story, the children's understanding is checked with the help of questions. It is important for us as teachers to try to make these questions before. And then if we need, if we have some inspiration to change something, it is okay. But we should be prepared to follow this process. This process goes from repeating the story, and then we go into the deeper level of story. We should help them in this second phase to gain the insights into the message of the story. The things we should remember is that we shouldn't explain intellectually anything from the story. We should just tell the story and help children reach the message through their hearts directly. I already said that we should do it in a simple and clear way. And Satya Sai also gave very, very good instruction to teachers. When they choose the story, they should ask themselves, will this story lead children to a better, more harmonious and kinder life? Basic techniques and additional resources which can help us while we tell the story. Some of them are well known, some of them are maybe more interesting because they are not so known. So I will stress these things. We know that we can use felt shapes, laminated pictures, different types of puppets. We can even use some kind of clothesline with pictures which should be ordered in the correct sequence. We can use this also not only when we're repeating the story, but also during the story. In this way, children can be activated to listen to the story more carefully. So you tell the story. After one part of the story, they can choose the picture which is appropriate for this part of the story. We can use also story box or bags. We can see this in the picture, a bag full of different puppets, and children also can choose the character and participate in the story in this way. Here we have one teapot which is made with the technique of papier mâché, and we can also use these items. For example, once when we told the story of Snow White, Snow Queen, we made these side things which were present in the story. Although we had a PowerPoint with beautiful pictures, but we had some kind of magical bag in which these items which were important were present. And the children were enchanted, delighted to see these little things. For example, we drew out from this bag magic, these little red shoes which she lost at the bank of the river. Then we had a golden comb with which good witch was combing her hair in order to help her forget everything about Kai, her friend Kai she was looking for. So these things always make a great impact because children's imagination is activated. Here in this picture, you can also see the colorful sheets of cloth, which are very, very good items for connecting with the story. They are all of the same length, 1 meter by 1 meter, but they are in very different colors and they are unstructured, in fact, and you can use them for many things. For example, if you tell the story about some creatures from the water, you can use blue cloth to show that this is the water. If some character is very angry, you can use the red cloth to show that this emotion, etc., etc. So the essence of this type of things is that you do not have finished object. You have the object that can be everything, and you leave children to finish in their mind the other details which miss with this object. Also, we can use children's bodies to as an additional resource. They can, for example, have a task to if you mention frogs or some other creatures, that they have a task to jump when they hear the particular word and to do something. For frog to say ribbit, ribbit, or for monkey to jump 3 times. In this way, you keep the attention of children very alive. We prepare children for storytelling in a special way. We can make some special place in the room for storytelling, and we can always use our voice as the great means to collect children's attention. For example, when I want to start the story, I always lower my voice and make some kind of magic in which they expect some secret to happen. We start the story with special words, long time ago, once upon a time. And here you have a storytelling code, which we created in our school to start the story. This storytelling code has a lot of pockets in the inside. When you look it from the outside, it is just simple code. But when you open the sides, you find a lot of magical things hidden in these pockets, which are connected with story. And this is also stems, fosters children's imagination and makes them very curious to see what is there and what will happen with these little creatures which are hidden. And we can always make voice to make this special atmosphere. And it is very important not to start to tell the story before you gain the complete silence. And when you have children's total attention, that is the reason why silent sitting is always done before telling the story, because it is important to have this inner silence before you start to tell the story, which will have some kind of inner process. It is also very important to tell the story in a very personal style. We cannot imitate other people. We should find this place of enjoyment inside of ourselves and do it in our own way. Also, for storytelling, our voice is very important. We can do everything only with our voice. We can stress the meaning, we can give different voice to different characters, and we can stress important words. And also, we shouldn't be afraid of making silence while we tell the story. Sometimes we can make silence and interrupt the story, ask children to close their eyes, to imagine the pictures in their heads. We can also include some sounds which will be in accordance to the story plot. When we tell the story, after that we have the part in which we check the understanding of children. First, we retell the story. This retelling of the story can sometimes be a little bit boring, and that is the reason why I try to make a game out of it. And we retell the story. I start to retell the story, and I change the things that happened in the story. And then I ask children to help me if I forgot something. And they like this game very much, because in this game, they say, no, 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 you are not right. It didn't happen like this. And then they tell what really happened. So we can also use these pictures which we mingle and then give them task to make correct order. Or we can tell them to retell the story without words, just using the movements, using their bodies to tell what happened. This can be very, very creative and interesting. Then we will go to deeper level. We will ask them the questions which will help them understand the characters, the reasons why they behave in this way or that way. In this part, we can give them the roles of the characters and give them the task to try to understand what are their feelings, what are the reasons why they did something, and to tell what would they do if they were in the place of this character. Finally, at the end of this process, we can ask them personal questions, and we can give them a possibility to change the ending of the story if they didn't like it. I had this when I once I can give you one example. Once when I told children the story of a good tree and a little boy who grew up and who always needed something from this tree. And if you remember, this is very well known story. This tree became in the end a stump because he gave everything to this boy. He needed to make furniture when he was older. He needed this or that. And at the end, he didn't have anything else to give him. When this boy became old man, he came and this tree said, sit on my stump. And this story was very touching. It touched children's heart very deeply. But they were not satisfied with the end of the story. They said, this is not fair because he gave everything and this little boy did not give not anything in return. So I asked them to change the end of the story, and it was beautiful because they came to the solution that this man, when he became father, he should bring his children to enjoy the shade of the tree and to make tree happy and to make his children as well happy. So this is a very good way in which children think about dharmic conclusion, in which we will have harmony at the end of the story. Now we will address one more topic, and this is how to create a healing story for challenging behavior. We have very often we can notice some challenging behavior problems with children we work with, and it is good then to make a story which will help them overcome this problem. So I talked about these healing stories and how to create a healing story according to particular problems children have. So we should use metaphor to make these stories. We shouldn't do the things which are too obvious and too direct, because children can feel ashamed in front of other children. And also this metaphor will help them build imaginative connection with the child with certain behavior problems. For example, and we can use some kind of a lateral thinking to find these connections with the problem. We can find the solution in the world of insects, birds, and animals. I can give you one example. For example, a child who constantly cries. The story which was created for this child was about a whale who cried constantly and annoyed his mother and other children whales. You know that wailing is the word in English which is the word for this type of behavior. Then the journey, this main part consists of obstacles, temptations, that create imbalance. And then we need some helpers, guides, other side characters that can help main character to be supported. And the repetition, like in fairy tales, helps occurs here. For example, this little whale could not learn nice songs or play with other small whales because he was crying constantly and he didn't have energy for other things. He annoyed other children, was very busy crying, and other children didn't like to spend time with him. And one day he stayed alone because he was crying close to the coast and did not notice that he entered a small lagoon. He cried there, but a low tide started and he was soon stranded on the coast. Nobody could hear him because they were all used to be annoyed with him, and they just went playing and did not notice his trouble. In unfolding part, we establish again harmony and balance. It has to be positive and it has to give some vision, some strategy which would help child overcome his problem. For this story about little whale, the solution was created that he remembered all the beautiful sounds his mother tried to teach him and tried to make him repeat them, but he didn't want to. But now he remembered this and started to repeat them, first in a low voice, then his voice was stronger and stronger, and very soon he was singing a beautiful song, and other small whales could hear him and his mother, and they came to help him. And at the end, his mother was very proud of him. He said, "You have finally learned the beautiful and powerful whale song." And she touched him with her muzzle all over the body, because that was the way how whale mothers kiss their children. And he was very happy and he even created a song because he now learned to use his voice in a positive way. And this was the song with which he called his whale friends later. So in this way, children know how to overcome the problem without any bad feelings about themselves. And I will finish this presentation with another aspect, and that is that we can create the healing story together with a child. I will just tell you about this magic board game, which consists of different scenes from our everyday life. And children have this spinning wheel, and they choose the scene according to the number which comes. And these scenes are ordinary scenes, but they have some spots with a golden color, which are magical spots. And children choose also the number of their family members according to this spinning wheel, and they can use mother, father, children, child, or grandma. For example, we create these figures out of clay, and then they create a story. When they do this, this is projective technique in which they always tell about the situations they have in their family. And if they have some problems, these problems very easily pop up during this story. Then together with the child, the elder person who creates the story finds the solution and help child pass through these problems. I will finish this with one situation I had in my life as a mother. During the war, we had the bombardment of Belgrade in one moment, and my daughter was 5 years old at that time. And I was very concerned how to preserve her inner world and how to help her feel safe and protected. And then 1 week we were without electricity. And when the night comes, it was quite dark and unpleasant. Then I took one blanket, which was given to her by her grandma, who she adored. And we used to spend these nights laying on this blanket in a very intimate atmosphere with one candle. And I used to tell her a lot of stories, and we used to talk about a lot of things which are connected with our family and with love which was present in our family. And I have to tell you that after 7 days, when electricity came, my daughter was very disappointed. He said, "Oh, electricity came again, what a pity." So this is a good way that we can always, in very difficult situations, find a way how to help children feel safe and protected. And this is the main role we have as adults when telling the stories to children. This is the end of my presentation. George, if other participants have some questions, I'm ready to answer.
Yes, thank you very much, dear Verica. It was really very rich and enlightening presentation. If your very rich experience in preparing good stories, in sharing with children in school, also this touching story with your daughter. After all, I'm thinking that the most important part of a story is to bring love and light in the heart of the little children. And
Yes, we forgot. Sorry, George, we forgot to tell this as a conclusion of our presentation that human values and this positive attitude is the most important part.
yeah.
Sorry.
And I know that there are some. If you have any questions, because now the time is
Yes.
already
Yes.
10 past 11, and I'm afraid that there is no, we will go a lot out of our program. So I will suggest to everybody that if you have any question, you can send to us through the email that you know, and we'll be very happy to address these questions. Verica will answer. So I think now we have to thank you very much, Verica, for this presentation. And it is better to have our break. We need a little break to relax and to stand up. It will take 5 minutes, and then we will continue with the workshop. So thank you again. So we are back again. Welcome back. It was very nice and rich presentation to understand the importance of storytelling. And in order to make it even better, now we are going to have a very nice workshop prepared by Esma, Gadzo, Bursic, who is also a very experienced teacher and a dedicated worker in the field of Satyasa education and human values. Esma is from Sarajevo, Bosnia, but currently lives in Pula, Croatia. She has a master's degree. Esma, can you turn on your camera? So welcome. Good morning. I was saying that Esma has a master's degree in marketing and English language and literature. She has worked as a representative of a tour operator until the war in her country and then moved on to work at school, where she discovered the beauty of teaching and being with children. By now, she has over 36 years of experience with high school students, and this is very important because what we will hear it is coming from the heart of an experienced teacher. She has attended many different education programs, but the one that truly thrilled her heart was the Satyasa Educator program. She received her diploma from the Institute of Satyasa Education of South Europe in 2014, and since then she is a teacher trainer of the Institute. Esma is also a member of the coordinating team of this wonderful online course. So please, Esma, the ground is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's such a joy to be with you today. And it is my real privilege to share this workshop on storytelling today. The aim of the workshop is for you to experience the technique of storytelling and to see how one can use stories based on real life experience with real life people to transmit an important message to older children. Sorry for my coughing. Okay, though Verica extensively and expertly covered the topic of storytelling, I have to mention something, and that is the magic of storytelling. Stories have got some magic in them that's amazing. We are not usually aware of it, but it's there, woven in the fabric of every story. I witness this every time at my school. Sorry, I recently had corona, so I'm coughing every now and then. I worked in the vocational school, and my kids had lots of difficulties, all kinds of difficulties, and it was very hard to get their attention all at the same time. But when I say story time, it felt like I had a magic wand. Silence would prevail. The depressed ones and those who were in a zombie-like state would suddenly wake up and become interested. And restless ones would calm down and started listening, all of them unconsciously knowing that in every story there is a gift of life and full life for them. And this is the magic of the story, magic of effortlessly transmitting the wisdom of the whole humanity into our hearts. And now I would ask you to sit comfortably, start slowly inhaling and exhaling and relaxing your body. I would ask you to go back in time when you are 15, a teenager with all its joys and challenges, and become my teenage students. Thank you. And now, story time. Now I'm going to tell you 2 stories, believe or not. The first story. There was this teenager boy whose name was Rob. And that day at school, his best friend Joe invited him to come to a birthday party. Rob was delighted. On the way home, he met his playmates, guys he used to play football in the neighborhood. And he told them this joyful information. They said, "We will come with you." He was shocked. He was thinking, "Oh dear, I should tell them not to come. They are not invited. Besides, they wouldn't fit in." But then fear crept in. He thought, what if they don't let me play again with them football? So he gave in, didn't say a word. On the way to the party, his playmate said, "Oh, what's the party without alcohol? Let's buy some booze." Rob was shocked again. He thought, "Oh God, I don't drink. Joe doesn't drink, and his company either. So I should tell them not to buy alcohol." But then fear crept in again. He gave in. When they came to the party, he was already nervous and uncomfortable because of all this situation. So instead of joining to Joe and the others, he went with his playmates into the kitchen where they opened the booze. They offered him weird cocktail, and he thought, "Oh, I should not take this. I shouldn't drink it. I don't drink alcohol. What would my parents say? But then, if I don't, I will look bad in front of them." So again, he gave in, had that cocktail and another one. They all got drunk and started acting really crazy. Joe asked them to leave the party. So the end result is, as you will see on the next slide, his school friend Joe was really upset and angry, of course, at him for ruining his party. His playmates laughed at him because he wasn't able to hold the drink. And his parents, yes, he had to do some explaining to his parents because they were not happy with his drinking. Neither was he. He felt really bad. And now another story. This is the story of Rosa Parks. On the 1st December in 1955, Rosa Parks, a 42-year-old Black woman, got on the bus. And as she was tired after a long day work, she was happy to find a seat to sit down and get a little rest before she comes home. But at the time, there was segregation law in Alabama, in the USA, according to which Black people could get on the front part of the bus just to pay a ticket, get out of the bus, and then go in the back side of the bus to get on, and there were only few seats reserved for them. And if a white person got on the bus, they had to get up and give their seats to them. So that particular day, she was sitting, and then the young white fellow came in, and he wanted to sit down. Deeply in her heart, Rosa Parks felt that this was so unjust, so unfair, and so demeaning for everyone, not to mention for her and the whole Black community. And she knew in her heart that something must be done, no matter what. This must be stopped, she thought. And then she decided she would not get up. So when the driver insisted she got up, she said, "No, I'm sorry, I will not get up." He was shouting. Everybody in the bus was shocked. Still, politely, she refused. She said, "No, I'm sorry, I will not get up." So they got police, she got arrested, but whole Black community, led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., organized a peaceful resistance, boycotting the bus for a whole year. So the result of this, the end result of this was, as you will see on the next slide, on the 13th of November 1956, the Supreme Court ruled that bus segregation was unconstitutional. Sorry. Rosa Parks became known as the mother of civil rights movement, and of course, she felt happy and confident. And now I have questions for you. You may answer your questions in the chat, and I am sorry for not being able to read all of them because of the time, but you can read them yourself as well. So the questions are, what character would you rather be? Which is not difficult to answer, but if you were to choose, but more importantly, why? Then second question is, when did Rob betray himself? Next one, what qualities would Rob have had he listened to his heart? And another one, what qualities did Rosa Parks have? Now you may write in the chat box. You don't have to answer all of them. You can answer to those that touch you. Are these questions difficult? If not, we may leave it and you can later ponder on them. And now you can go. Thank you, Irene, Rosa Parks. Then Rosa had dignity and a strong character. She had courage. Very nice. You're very wise, kids. Okay, thank you. Now we may go into next part, which is breakout rooms. This is your time to interact, share your views and experience, discussing about the task allotted to you. And while discussing, one of you can take notes. And if you wish, you can send us your contribution afterwards via email so we can share them with others. We will divide you in, we will divide you in 6 groups, and you will have 20 minutes time to do the task. Task 1 for the group 1, 2, and 3 will be from what you have realized and learned. Recreate the story together with the title, Listen to Your Heart Throb. And task 2 is for the groups 4, 5, and 6, which is together, write a letter to Rosa Parks about what moved you while listening to the story about her. I hope you will enjoy your task. We will see you in 20 minutes when we will continue with our workshop. Welcome back, and come back to your normal age. Now I would like to explain why I use these stories and what did I want to achieve with it. So what was my criteria? When we use stories, we have to be careful and see first what the problem is we want to deal with, and second, to choose the right story for that, for the right age. And for 15-year-olds, realistic stories and stories with real life experiences are appropriate because then they can connect with them. Even the antagonistic stories, because then they can recognize what they shouldn't do, and that way learn how to improve their conduct and behavior. So here, the problem I wanted to address was giving into peer pressure. This is really dominant problem at secondary schools. And also lack of self-confidence, which is source of this problem. And the important message I wanted to transmit was the importance of the unity of 3H. And I will briefly show you a lesson plan, though we are going to have a special session where you will deal with lesson plan in depth. So the values I wanted to impart was right conduct and truth, and related values, unity of 3H, courage and self-confidence. Learning objectives were to become aware of how important it is to listen to your heart, and to learn that everything, the best in life, comes from inside. Your courage, your self-confidence, your strength, your happiness, and only if you harmonize your thoughts, words, and deed, your head, your heart, and your hand. I would just mention one more thing. First, you can use these stories also as parents, especially those with antagonistic characters, when you want to transmit certain message to your children, because then they don't feel threatened by it. Second, I would just mention another important thing, its impact it had on children at school. When I did group work, I would mix up those kids who have better self-confidence with those shy ones that are more prone to give into peer pressure. And you could see while they were discussing that it dawned on them. Really, this was like storytelling was like a portal opening for understanding better themselves and kids around them and the world in general. You could see when, I remember one boy, he said, "My mom tells me if I don't respect myself, nobody will." And also you could see on their faces and eyes, especially those shy ones, that they understood first that they are not the only ones that have problem of peer pressure, that they are not the only ones who have fear to say no. And also they will recognize by reactions of the stronger ones that it's okay to say no, not just okay, that's extremely important to say no and listen to your heart. We can also help them. I had a girl who had a problem, serious. At the beginning, she was really kind and gentle and hardworking, but she was very shy. Next semester, she changed completely. She became distant. She didn't do anything, and I couldn't reach her. Headmistress couldn't reach her. I asked the girls, her friends, they wouldn't say. But after such workshops, the girls came to me and told me about her problem, so we were able to help her. So storytelling is magic in every possible way. Now, next slide, please. I would like to read you a quote of the founder of this program, my beloved teacher, Satya Sai. "Do not make them learn by rote meaning by heart or memorizing. It will not transform the mind just by soaking into it. The incidents and the morals they illustrate have to be imprinted over the heart. They must learn not by heart, but for and through the heart." And now I suggest you to sing with us a song. Our dear Susanna Palermo wrote lyrics and also composed it. And you can join us, of course, with mics off. I wish I had known for this song before, because I would have surely used it in the class. At the time, I used another song. Let's go on. It's beautiful and very much connected with what we are talking, talk to the light within, where the strengths come from. We'll just wait for a second for George to put the song on. In the meantime, we can read the lyrics, which are beautiful. When you feel angry or tired and sad and to have lost the way, as Rob did, talk to the light within your heart and listen to what it will say. Ask it to become brighter and brighter. Ask it to become lighter and lighter. Ask it to become brighter and brighter and to illumine the day. Beautiful.
Lost the way. Talk to the light within your heart and listen to what it will say. Talk to the light within your heart and listen to what it will say. Ask it to become brighter and brighter. Ask it to become lighter and lighter. Ask it to become brighter and brighter and to illumine the day. Ask it to become brighter and brighter. Ask it to become lighter and lighter. Ask it to become brighter and brighter and to illumine the way. When you feel angry or tired and sad and to have lost the way, talk to the light within your heart and listen to what it will say. Ask it to become brighter and brighter. Ask it to become lighter brighter and brighter, and to illumine the day. Ask it to become brighter and brighter, ask it to become lighter and lighter, ask it to become brighter and brighter, and to illumine the way. When you feel angry or tired and sad, and to have lost the way, talk to the light within your heart and listen to what it will say.
Despite technical difficulties, it's beautiful. Thank you, Suzanne. And I guess if Suzanne agrees, we will send it to you so you can use it. Beautiful. Full of love, and most important, the message. Its message is perfect. Talk to the light within your heart and listen to what it will say. Thank you. Next slide, Esthercris, please. Now I have homework for you, which is optional, of course, but if you do decide to do it, it will be really rewarding because it connects you directly to your heart. After short meditation, when you get connected with your heart, remember with love who was the person who used to tell you the stories. I was the one who had no one to tell me the stories, but later on, I heard so many stories from other people and learned to love them. So if you are the one, just remember the story you liked most in your childhood, the one that you cherished and wanted to hear over and over again. Next one. So the magic task for your homework is, in what way did a story or fairy tale shape your character, shape your personality? And what were the most important values that it gave you, and how did it help you in supporting your inner development, as Verica put it in her beautiful presentation, putting in order your inner house. Now, I would like to thank you for attention, and I hope you enjoy the workshop. And let us remember the words of Satyasai. They must learn not by heart, but for and through the heart. Thank you.
So we're coming to the end of today's session, and I would like to thank very much Esma and Verica for helping us to dive deep into the meaning, the importance of storytelling, which as I was saying, is the backbone of a successful human values lesson. I think I've managed to send to your chat this last task that Esma gave to us. In case that you would like to work on that, you can see it there, and you can keep it in your computer to work later in that. Now I will invite you to open your cameras if you want, and your mics, and to share any thoughts as we're going on, as we're moving to this adventure of being more familiar with this wonderful program of human values. Already today, with today's presentations, we covered the second teaching technique. Last time we spoke about light meditation and silent sitting. And so next time it will be the third technique, which is universal prayers and quotations. Of course, you have received the program. It will be in 2 weeks. That means in 26th of February. It's nice to see each other. Even in this way, it will be much better if we could meet physically, and even to have some spare time after the meeting. Anyhow, it's good to see you all. And if you would like to, first I will like to invite our dear Verica to make some concluding remarks for today's session.
Thank you, dear George. I'm very happy to be involved in such a type of activities we have all together. As in fairy tales, we all work together and help each other. And this is maybe the most beautiful experience I have in this course. And also, I would like to invite everybody to tell their stories, to spend their time talking with their children and making these beautiful stories which will forge the values of your families and to transmit the things which you find important. We know when we create story, we create it not only for others, but for ourselves as well. So it is always very good to make a story about your life and about your heroic path in life. Thank you.